Howdy, folks. Welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Friday, April the 15th, 2016, and I'm very grateful to have just a few minutes of Mr. Craig Hemke of TF Metals Report. He has agreed to give us a few minutes of his time this afternoon to discuss what's happened with Deutsche Bank and the market rigging. Craig, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Rory. It's an interesting time to be alive, my friend.
It really is. I mean, we've got so many things that are happening right now. We've got the Shanghai Gold Exchange opening up next week with their futures market priced in renminbi, the yuan, and now this situation with Deutsche Bank. Tell me what's going on with Deutsche Bank.
Well, it's a pretty remarkable occurrence, Rory, and it is something that everybody needs to be following now in the weeks and months ahead. I've seen some rather laughable analysis out there about this is just, like a settling of a suit to make it go away. That's not what this is. This is far more significant than that. And people, like I said, need to be watching this story now for the next couple of weeks, couple of months. It's clear that the German regulators have cracked down on Deutsche Bank and I guess convinced them, if you will, that they want to not only settle these civil charges in this case of price rigging of both gold and silver, but also turn state's evidence in that for the first time, it looks like Deutsche Bank will be singing like a mafia songbird, if you will, and informing on others and sharing data, sharing text communication, sharing emails. And this could get really interesting quickly. What's most compelling about this story, Rory? Those two things rhyme. How about that? What's most compelling about this story, Rory, is the fact that we've seen, I don't even know, 6, 7, 8 different bits of civil litigation against the banks regarding precious metal manipulation over the last 7, 8 years. And the banks have worked hard to get them all thrown out before they were able to move forward. And they've always had the cooperation of the U.S. courts, and they have been thrown out. And what's critical about them being thrown out is that each of these cases were dismissed before we ever got to the legal, what we call discovery phase, where you can subpoena documents, where you can interview people under oath. And it's always been important to the banks to not get to that phase for the obvious reasons, right?
Right.
I mean, this is the same reason why folks like Ted Butler and Gatta and even myself can sit there and call these banks like JP Morgan all kinds of names and accuse them of the most heinous market manipulation crimes, and we never get sued. Because, again, that would give us a chance to get them under oath and subpoena them, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so the banks have always worked to avoid that outcome. Well, no longer is that going to be the case because now, by virtue of this settlement, which, though it doesn't appear to be a large sum of money, there was a rather small group of plaintiffs. But nonetheless, Deutsche Bank now has admitted to some extent their involvement and their complicitness in this ongoing crime. And Roy, I don't know about you, but anybody out there listening that's ever run into any contact with attorneys, especially class action attorneys, man, once they start smelling blood in the water, it's game on. I compared it yesterday to the situation where, the first time a tobacco company finally broke ranks and admitted guilt or whatever they admitted in the marketing of their products. I mean, the floodgates were open, right?
Exactly.
That's what we have now. The floodgates are now open. And even though this case is settled, there will most certainly be others hot on its heels. We will very likely now get into some discovery, get into some subpoenas, get into some under oath testimony, and things could move pretty quickly. So this is a major development. It's not one to be poo-pooed and just written off and laughed about and all that kind of stuff. This is significant news, and we just have to see where this path leads us in the days and weeks ahead.
So you don't think that it's going to just kind of go away and be a footnote in history the same way that Goldman Sachs market rigging, their outright theft in the mortgage-backed securities scandal where they paid their $5 billion and now it's all settled, it's all good, nobody's going to jail. You don't think that it's going to be something similar to that?
Well, as you said, Rory, unfortunately here in the States, there's precedent. And you look at the LIBOR scandals and the Forex trading scandals, and now you have this. There's a couple of things that go with it, though. One, the European connection, whether it's BaFin or whether it's the Swiss regulator. I mean, they're involved too. And so this isn't necessarily, just Eric Holder rolling over and looking away.
Okay.
So and it's not Bart Chilton, the right. Joke. Jeez. So it's not anything like that. But I think more importantly, let's tie this into what you mentioned earlier about the yuan denominated once daily gold fix that's going to finally make its appearance come Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, the 19th.
Yep.
London has controlled and still controls the global precious metal pricing. It has for over a century, or centuries really, and it continues to this day. Now, price is discovered, and I use the term price loosely, through the electronic futures trading, which takes place 23 hours a day, mainly dictated by the banks on the COMEX. But it's that electronic futures price that is cited or sourced as the London daily fix price, the two London gold fixes and this once daily silver fix. It is that London fix price that wholesalers, producers, consumers use around the world. And so London, even though the trading on the COMEX, which is as corrupt and as manipulated as you're going to find anywhere, even though COMEX trading sets the paper derivative price, it's that paper derivative price that is the basis of the wholesale price that's used out of these London fixes. What we're getting to now is a drawdown, a move away from the power of London. I mean, I think of London as being, the Death Star in a way of this empire. That's the center of the galaxy for the forces of darkness as it comes to precious metals, and has been now for, like I said, for over 100 years. What is finally emerging is a competing structure. And I mean, that's where the gold is. That's where respect for gold is. That's where all the trade is. That's where all the demand is in the East. And so we are transitioning in that direction. This, I guess, exposure of the criminality that takes place around those fixes in London is just kind of pulls out another cornerstone from the foundation of that epicenter there in London, and will further move emphasis away from it. Rory, I'll draw you back to remember that silver fix on January 28th. It was like, maybe you can loop that in if you still got it with this discussion. It was unbelievable what a fraud that was. And somebody was trying to price derivatives off of, this price that was set nowhere near where silver was trading, or somebody was trying to make or take delivery. I mean, there was serious fraud involved. And within, 2 or 3 days, there are about 5 or 6 major silver producers that quit the LME, that quit dealing with the LBMA, just walked away. So this is just hopelessly corrupt. Okay, well, here's even more proof that it's corrupt. You got Deutsche Bank admitting that it's corrupt, admitting their participation in the corrupt nature of the fixes. So again, bigger
and naming names of other people that they worked in collusion with, right?
Right, exactly. And so this idea that will they just skate like Goldman Sachs has skated, like all the banks have skated, that kind of thing. I have no idea. But in the bigger picture, the damage this does to the scheme itself, the bullion banking fractional derivative pricing scheme, is almost maybe irreparable. And so we should be very enthused by this. Anybody that thinks, that woke up this morning thinking all of a sudden silver was going to be up $2, and now just start trading freely on the COMEX. I mean, come on, give me a break. That day is coming, But just because of this, that didn't mean all of a sudden JP Morgan wasn't going to try to cap silver into the COMEX close today, which they clearly did. Silver, as most folks know, has not necessarily kept up with gold in 2016. Gold finally made new highs. For the first time in 2 or 3 years, it made new higher highs when it exceeded the 1190 high from back in October of last year. It exceeded the 1230 high from May of last year. But silver has yet to exceed the October 28th high of last year. Now, it got awful close today. Got to right to that high with about 10 minutes to go in COMEX trading. A close on a Friday above that intra-week high from October 28th last year would have been extremely bullish. And lo and behold, the last 10 minutes of trading, it was smashed back down 10 cents. No. You
Say
gotta
it
be
ain't
kidding.
so.
That couldn't possibly have happened. So, I mean, the banks are still in there protecting their positions. They're still manipulating the market. They've grossly expanded their short exposure just in the last week, trying to cap the price of gold and silver. So nothing has changed in that regard. But this admission by Deutsche Bank and the fact, like I said, that they are basically now turning state's evidence. Maybe they're going to have to assume a new identity and move to Idaho. But
we can only hope.
We can hope that. But that's this is a big deal, and but you don't want to be impatient. After all we've been through the last 5 years, you need to look at it in context and perspective. Think about it in the big picture and recognize that this, as we look back upon it, we'll go, wow, yeah, that really was a big deal. But you just can't expect, an immediate change today or tomorrow, or next week.
Don't you find it kind of that all of these, there's several events that seem to be lining up, and you've mentioned derivatives a couple of times, and this is the last question because I know you're busy. I want to step back just a little bit. I want to go back to October 2015. China, the yuan, added to the SDR basket. All in the background, you have BaFin and the other European securities enforcement bearing down on Deutsche Bank. This whole case is unfolding during that time. Now we move forward. The case is settled. They have turned state's evidence, as you said, and now next week we have, in 3 or in 4 days, we are going to have the yuan fix for gold, and it just seems like that there's just, and maybe my tinfoil hat is screwed on a little tight this morning, but it seems like that there's something that's happening with that. And as this whole thing continues to unfold, what impact is this all going to have on the derivatives market as a whole? Because, as you said, there's silver derivatives. There was something that happened on January the 28th that involved that. Somebody was in a lot of trouble. Somebody was in dire straits, and they had to get out. So, are there any implications in that? Or, like I said, is my tinfoil hat screwed on a little too tight this morning?
No, you're barking up the right tree. It's just impossible from the level where you and I are at to connect dots because we don't see most of the dots. And we're trying to make a 3D drawing out of, just a handful of dots on a page. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And but you're right. There's no question that there are a number of odd occurrences that are all lining up. I mean, the hell were these Fed meetings about Monday through Wednesday of this week?
Exactly.
And why would Yellen all of a sudden get whisked off to meet Obama and Biden at the conclusion of the first one? I don't, Roy, it's impossible to say. I will say this, though. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier this week, and I said, try to look at it this way. Divorce yourself from the current situation because it's very easy to get kind of caught up in the tyranny of the moment, and the urgent that all you see is what's immediately in front of you. And it is very easy as an analyst to be almost your own little pot or frog in a pot,
Yeah.
that the temperature gets raised on all this stuff you follow. And because it's all kind of urgent in front of you, you don't really recognize the collective significance of all of the different things that have happened. I just anybody listening, ask yourself, besides all of the headlines and the Fed meetings and the yuan fix and all these other things that are going on. Even just ask yourself this: if you were to go back to New Year's Day, you're sitting there watching the Rose Bowl, and gold hadn't in trading that day, but it wrapped up the year at 1,060. And it's just been the snot beaten out of it over the last couple of years. You got all these forecasts from all these buffoons talking about triple digit gold, and all that nonsense. And the mining shares have come down from, a hui of 600 to 105. Okay. When you're watching the Rose Bowl, I'm trying to remember who was playing, Stanford was beating the snot out of somebody. And you fast forward to today, April 15th, basically 100 days later. And gold is 1235, has been as high as 1285. The mining shares have more than doubled. If I showed up in front of you while you're watching the Rose Bowl and said, "Hey, Rory, on April 15th, gold's going to be 1235 and the hui's going to be 200," you'd probably think, "Oh my God, what's changed? There's clearly something going on." Well, here we are. What has changed? What is going on? I think we are in the middle of a rather consequential year. And I even find myself looking at this clearly manipulated beatdown we've had just the last couple of days, and the 4 or 5 overt, so blatant, it's as if they don't even care anymore, manipulations in gold over the last 5 weeks. And it doesn't even bother me anymore. It's like, whatever. It's so clear now that they're desperate to the point that they don't even care what the appearance is, that I'm just comfortable just watching every day, adding to my stack, holding on to, the handful of mining shares that I have, and just watching this all unfold before me.
That's about all we can do. Add to the stack, hold on to the handful of mining shares that you believe in, and just let the chips fall where they may, because it seems like they are, if they're not falling, they're on the edge.
They're falling. You're right. That's a good way to put it.
So, like I said, I'm not going to take up any more of your time, Craig, and I really appreciate the insight, and it's going to be interesting, like you said, over the next few weeks, and folks, please keep an eye out, because I think that there's going to be a lot more coming down the pike.
Yeah, and don't let anybody tell you that this Deutsche Bank story isn't a big deal, because it is. You may not be getting broadcast by the goons on CNBC or Bloomberg. They've got their own agenda, and you may not hear much more about it in the days ahead. But this is a big deal. Let it kind of play itself out, and we'll just see if, when we look back on the wreckage of everything in a few months. Now, we'll see if we don't look back on April 14th and the revelations and go, "Oh yeah, that was pretty important."
Yes, I would agree. Would agree wholeheartedly. And Craig, you can find all of Craig's work over at tfmetalsreport.com, and he has a wonderful service that's not very expensive and well worth the investment, because it's a great community and wonderful insight to be found there. Craig, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I could probably add lots, but I won't. We've really been doing great. The thing that people need to understand is that the metals markets are attempted, at least, to be 100% manipulated and controlled by the market making bullion banks. If you realize that and understand that, then you can begin to predict well in advance what they're going to do next. That's what we do. The subscribers that pay the $10 a month, I think they're served pretty well by the information that we share. So I'd encourage everybody to check it out.
And there you have it. So, well, Craig, once again, I really appreciate your time, and I'm very grateful for you to jump on the line with me this afternoon. And I will talk with you soon, my friend.
Have a great weekend, Roy.
Thank you. You as well.